Hi, Taras Pluskin, lead phycologist here at the Top Shelf Aquatics Farm. People ask me all the time, is the stuff on my glass algae? And the answer is, well, yes. Yes, it is. It's algae. Algae is like coral. It's a relatively unhelpful term to a point. It's a term of convenience, just like fish, coral. Someone says fish or coral, you roughly know what they're talking about to a degree. But there's really no true unifying characteristics of all the algae. A cyanobacteria that's a spirulina cell, for instance, is still as much of an algae as Tiaisocryces, Pavlova, Catostris, all these other things which are as distant as, let's say, a flatworm is from a bald eagle, is from an elephant, is from your Uncle Stu. So, the stuff on the glass, let's get back to that. The stuff on the glass, for the most part, in healthy reef aquariums, there could be some chlorophytes in there, but in most healthy reef aquariums, at least what I've seen under the microscope, especially if it's brown and it's not making long, annoying filaments, it's diatoms. There could be some exceptions to that, I'm sure that there are, but for the most part, well-cycled reef aquariums that have routine, normal growth, especially growth that when you go like this with your hand on the side of the glass, a little bit of dust flows away like freshly fallen powdered snow. This is likely loose diatom cells. They are existing out in the water column, and they are highly efficient at photosynthesizing. Basically, they want to stay where they are. They want to stay near the light, and they want to stay near a stable source of silicates and nutrients and the like. So that's why you find them attached to your glass. Your glass is essentially the perfect substrate for them. The Uberland, where it is just full of bright lights and a fresh supply of silicate and nitrates anywhere as far as your pump and your power heads are providing them. So for that point, we can see how diatoms like to readily settle on top of glass and all these other structures, and that can be kind of perceived as something annoying and somewhat aesthetically unpleasant because you have this brown stuff growing on your glass. So we have many different ways of dealing with this in the reef aquarium industry. We have magnetized scrapers that people can use to mechanically remove this from their glass, and then we also have various members of the cleanup crew, such as these turbo snails and some trochus snails as well. So a snail is the perfect cleanup crew for this type of algae, the surface biofilm encrusting kind, because most snails have a unifying feature called a radula, which essentially is a long chameleon-like tongue that's completely surrounded by razor blades. And when it goes up against the surface, it can just deploy those razor blades, scrape those diatoms off the surface, and consume them and be nice and happy. So are diatoms bad? Well, not necessarily. They provide an excellent forage for snails and all those other cleanup crew organisms that frankly need a snack if you don't want them to starve to death and you want them to stay alive longer. But we can also see how they might be getting annoying when they get too dense on the glass too quickly. So in their worst, I would say a diatom is something of a canary in the coal mine algae, where, you know, if you're getting blooms way too quick, way too rapidly, and your cleanup crew just can't keep up, you're scraping and it's coming back almost within the day, you're probably going to want to turn your lights down, and you might want to consider if you have too many silicates in your tank. Now, that's the diatoms. I said that they were very common in a well-cycled, relatively happy, healthy reef tank. There are many, 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 many other bad characters that can settle on the glass. Huh? The glass. Many of them are rather unsightly, and some of them can even be toxic and highly dangerous to the reef inhabitants you're trying to house. Various cyanobacteria and dinoflagellate species can negatively affect the reef aquarium experience beyond being just, oozing, unpleasant slimes and the like. One, obviously they can smother corals and compete with them for light and other resources. Two, things like cyanobacteria can actually change the water chemistry. They can take some of the vitamins and some of the nutrients and shape them around into forms that only they can use and kind of bat out some of the other good algae that you want. Things like dinoflagellates can also consume toxins and make them, well, toxic to things that eat them and slow down your cleanup crew. So when it comes to things growing on your glass, and the best way to confront and understand them, the battle begins with one, knowing what you're dealing with. This is the biggest bane of the reef aquarium industry as a whole. We have many of these weird pest algae and slimes and oozes and fogs, and very difficult to understand what it is just by looking at it underneath a microscope. But looking at it under a microscope will at least tell you what kind of critter you're dealing with. A diatom, a chlorophyte, a dinoflagellate, and then you'll be able to take some sort of action from there. Now, hopefully in the future, with companies such as Aquabiomics and the like, things such as PCR, which is a way of taking a genetic stamp of those specific algae cells, will provide reef aquarists hopefully a casual and accessible means to directly identify the pest algae and whatever is growing on their glass. And by knowing specifically what they're dealing with, they can take various actions to address what issues might be occurring in their coal mine as the glass starts to fog and the canary starts screaming. But we'll talk about more of these various algae taxa, both the good and bad, in future episodes. We'll see you next time.